Brandy Passante dug through old storage facilities for years. When no one else was interested in 2023, she paid $2,800 for a vacant locker. Rust had locked the door. It had a terrible scent. Jared would have even turned around and walked away. But for some reason, she stayed. When she peered inside, everything changed. Court documents, bank records, and an extremely rare collection that required the appraisers to have armed guards present were all there. The overall sum stunned even AE's leaders. But Brandi still feels the pain of the decision she had to make. She was born in Harris County, Texas, and her birthday is May 16, 1980. It was difficult to grow up there, and the situation at home was far worse. From an early age, her brothers mistreated her. This was no friendly skirmish. It was frightening and forceful, and it happened constantly. "My brothers used to beat me up all the time," Brandi later recalled. "I no longer accept trash from anyone because I've learned to fight back." You either gave up or got stronger as a result of growing up that way. The second one was chosen by Brandi. She would be protected in life and have an advantage in business if she were tough. She was not as brave as she appeared to be. Quiet and reserved, Brandi had not always been sure of herself. She disliked being in social situations. She didn't know how to be the gregarious, boisterous child. As an alternative, she gave individuals dirty looks. It was not truly intended to frighten them. She simply did it to protect herself. If she appeared irate or aloof, they could leave her alone. That gaze would never leave her. Years later, those who saw Storage Wars would still recall the expression. She chuckled about it and said that her sleeping look had nothing to do with her emotions. She used this tactic to hide her true level of fear from others. She had more than a chaotic life. It was really painful. It wasn't safe or warm at home. She had to mature fast since she felt that way. She ceased to be so forthcoming. She didn't wait to be rescued by someone. With no one to rely on but herself, she erected a wall. "I was able to read people well, tell when someone was lying, and see problems before it materialized since I had been on edge for years. It helped her win, and it helped her survive." She was especially strong in storage sales, where you had to make a snap decision and trust your instincts. She didn't pick up those talents from reading a book. She acquired them by surviving childhood. Her life began to alter when her family relocated to California. When they moved, it was unexpected. A chance to escape some of the suffering, but also a new place and people. In California, she made a fresh start. In the end, she met Jared Schultz. They became more than simply romantically involved and got along great. They began collaborating and entered the storage sales industry. It was a difficult job. You have to be able to think fast and maintain your position. For Brandi, it was designed. Her background had taught her how to handle chaos, so she wasn't supposed to be that way. When things became difficult, she remained unflinching. She persisted even when things became difficult. She took advantage of the pandemonium by leaning into it. Brandi already had a solid work ethic before the cameras discovered her. There was nothing she could do. Her lack of financial and emotional support taught her to be independent at a young age. She never asked anybody else to mend things. She completed all household chores and odd jobs alone. That was not something she changed her opinion about. In 1999, Jared Schultz and Brandy Passante worked together at a carpet cleaning company in Tustin, California, prior to their relationship. Sales was Jared's responsibility. The new employee was named Brandi. They didn't initially sense a connection, and their occupations weren't particularly fascinating. Jared was her supervisor in theory, and relationships weren't exactly encouraged at work. At one point, a person who knew both of them posted notes on Jared's truck urging him to treat her with more consideration. He was aware that he may be a bit gruff at times. He wasn't immediately liked by Brandi either. "He wore me down," she claimed. He persisted. Chemical fumes and carpet stains seemed like a strange combination, but they were effective. One of the most well-known pairs on reality TV would emerge from that modest beginning. They began in the most peculiar place, but they wouldn't become well-known for a while. The time they spent cleaning the carpets proved to be more beneficial than anyone had anticipated. They learned how to find value in items that others tossed away by dealing with filth, cleaning up other people's messes, and sifting through their old belongings. When they later entered the storage sales industry, it was helpful. They went to a local auction after Jared's aunt, who owned a public storage facility, advised them to do so. When they entered, they weren't chilly. After years of sifting through trash, they knew how to uncover hidden value. Because they didn't fear getting their hands dirty, they were superior to those who did. A heap of trash caught the attention of many. Jared and Brandy recognized an opportunity to earn money and a riddle they could solve. Before they became well-known on television, they took a chance. In February 2010, Now and Then, a thrift store, opened its doors in Orange, California. They had no trouble making plans. You can sell inexpensive items that you obtain from your shop's storage containers. Although it wasn't thrilling, it enabled them to advance and cover their expenses. Because the first store was so successful, they launched a second one in Long Beach in March 2013. They had a party with food, music, and fans because it was so large. However, shopping isn't simple. Due to financial difficulties, the Long Beach business closed its doors in 2014. The Orange store abruptly shut down in 2016. The stores continued to be significant. These actions demonstrated Brandy and Jared's willingness to take chances. And those who create TV shows took notice of that risk. They were able to join storage wars thanks to the stores and the people who owned them. Their secondhand stores were more than just companies. They served as locations for sending items. When Storage Wars debuted on December 1, 2010, Brandy Passante and Jared Schultz made a swift move. Among the youngest buyers on the exhibition was Brandy. Her age was barely 30. She was also among the bravest. The majority of previous bidders were older and more traditional. But Brandy and Jared entered without masks or fear. The regulations were broken by them. They learned a lot on the job and made a lot of hazardous agreements, but they picked things up fast. They also gained knowledge in front of a large crowd. The Young Guns, their moniker, wasn't merely an amusing one. They were exactly what it said they were. The fresh blood must demonstrate something. At the same time, they were managing Now and Then, their thrift store in Orange, California, and navigating the frenzy of sales. They were motivated and under a lot of strain, which made them likable. People supported them since they were attempting to earn a living in addition to winning bids. Jared and Brandy did more than just add excitement to the show. The rules governing who could succeed in that world were altered. Brandy immediately jumped out. She didn't behave badly in front of the cameras. She took no action. What you saw is what you got. She gives Jared a furious look while rolling her eyes. She was pleased when a gamble paid off. Not everything was phony. People noticed Brandy's honesty. Other members of the group occasionally came across as theatrical or exaggerated. She was immediately likable since she was honest. She was not pretending to be an expert. When she did, she claimed to be mistaken. She was able to laugh at herself and wasn't scared to reprimand reckless behavior, especially from Jared. Over time, her honesty gained her trust. Because she didn't try to always seem flawless, her fans liked her. She discussed the challenges of juggling career, family, and celebrity. She remembered that statement about the show being both a boon and a bane. Even when it allowed people in, it demonstrated the power of attention. Even when the cameras stopped filming, she remained truthful. She continued to share genuine moments from her life on social media. All I see is Brandy. No phony smiles or screens. Because she was so honest, people stayed with her. Because of Storage Wars' attention, their thrift store underwent significant alteration. Prior to the performance, Now and Then was merely a modest secondhand shop that attracted clients by simply entering. However, after the first season, things changed. In the hopes of meeting Brandi and Jared or purchasing something they had seen on television, people lined up to enter the store. Business took off. They launched a second location in Long Beach by 2013. At first, it seemed like a good idea. There was a lot of excitement and both venues were full, but it was short-lived. After just a year, the Long Beach store had to close due to financial difficulties. The first store also closed quietly after operating till the beginning of 2016. The ups and downs of reality TV stardom were similar to those of the stores. Nevertheless, we learned a valuable lesson from that brief retail venture. Brandi was not only a famous person. She had grit, was a skilled businesswoman, and could negotiate. She was known for being tough and shrewd even after the stores closed. She was able to move on to new things and maintain her significance long after other things had lost their significance because of that photograph. In 2014, A&E decided to offer Brandi and Jared their own program. On August 12, 2004, the debut episode of Brandi and Jared, Married to the Job, was broadcast. The concept was simple to understand. Display the state of affairs following the sales. Supporters witnessed how they managed the demands of managing their stores, caring for their children, and maintaining a relationship. Not all of it was lovely. They depicted arguments, tension, and all the untidy aspects of being a couple on television. However, it was interesting because of the honesty. The filler wasn't pre-written. It seems genuine. Nevertheless, the show only had 8 episodes. Although they weren't bad, the ratings weren't sufficient to continue. Despite its one-season run, the show brought more to their plot. They were intriguing not just for their sales but also for the way they handled every challenge life presented. Meanwhile, some startling discoveries were made. For about $50, Brandy Passante and Jared Schultz purchased an outdated, dusty storage unit. But after they opened it, they began to dig and discovered gold. The room was filled with My Little Pony toys. Many, many of them. Others were still sealed in their original boxes, others were rare, and some were old. It became evident that this was more than a children's collection with each figure they removed. This was gold for fans. According to the experts' calculations, it was worth $875. In other words, their $50 wager paid out nearly 17 times over. When the 6th season of the show debuted, it immediately became a fan favorite. Brandi was overjoyed. Jared wasn't sure, as usual. However, the adult My Little Pony enthusiasts, known as bronies, went berserk. It wasn't pure chance. It was a wonderful flip that people will remember for a very long time. But not every time Brandi found anything, she smiled. She paid $900 for a flat that seemed uninteresting from the outside during her previous season. That wasn't how I felt for very long. As she and her assistant rummaged through the trash, the locker took a frightening turn. It appeared to contain a collection of magic. There were carved staffs, animal bones, an antler-topped head, odd bundles of chicken bones, and a spooky little person in a chicken cap. Brandi appeared to be afraid. She refused to resell any of it. The materials seemed harmful to her. Was voodoo the actual thing? Was it a work of art? People were unable to make a decision. But one thing was obvious. In the past, the show has featured some eerie lockers. Then Bry took one of his riskiest actions. She purchased a unit for $2,500, but she had no idea what it contained. When she opened it, the risk made sense, although there was a significant probability. The locker contained presses, dryers, screens, and even an exposure unit used for screen printing in a professional setting. Everything you require to start a printing business. A specialist appraised the items and determined they were worth $5,000. The discovery demonstrated the unexpected utility and value of these storage devices, and Brandi made a respectable sum of money. Reselling it wasn't the only goal. It was about what might occur. In 2014, she repeated the action. Another box that appeared to be empty cost her $1,250. As they discussed the call, which initially confused Jared, things became interesting. Buried beneath mounds of old junk were paintings, wall decorations, and personal belongings. They then discovered the major prize, a professional paint spray system valued at over $3,000. After accounting for all expenses, the locker's total value was $3,500. To serve as a reminder that not all hidden gems are immediately apparent. It can occasionally only be seen by someone who has Bry's eye. The best, however, was the early victory that turned things around. No one else seemed interested in the $1,700 locker that Brandi and Jared purchased. When they opened it, they were taken aback. It was filled with rare, well-preserved, and vintage toys and action figures. The quality was the best I've ever seen, and the collection was enormous. When all was said and done, the cost was $12,800. It ended up being one of the most significant victories in Storage Wars history. In December 2012, the Storage Wars narrative underwent a significant shift. One of the most well-known faces on the show, David Hester, claimed in a startling lawsuit that a network of lies was being told behind the scenes. He was more than just the one who shouted, "Yope," at auctions. It was him who now claimed that the entire performance was a hoax. He asserts that nothing was left to chance by the makers. They were packing storage boxes full of plants. To increase the show's excitement and viewership, items like a BMW Mini or a pile of newspapers containing Elvis Presley's death notices were employed. Schiester remained silent. He immediately filed a lawsuit in Los Angeles Superior Court, requesting damages over $750,000. He claimed that the production team had violated their contract and company policies, and that he was sacked for speaking out. He even suggested that the makers might have violated the 1934 Communications Act's federal broadcasting regulations, which state that events cannot be changed. A&E had to make a public statement, but the harm was already done. Individuals began to question whether any of their most cherished locker exposes had actually been authentic. When the evidence finally surfaced, it was difficult to ignore. Numerous emails, documents, and even reimbursement checks demonstrated that the locker planting was more than just a story. Some set workers claimed that, particularly in the first season, directors had placed items in the lockers without authorization. At times, this occurred right in front of the actors and staff. How to do it was alarmingly obvious. Each member of the cast would contribute their own unique items. The producers would conceal them in the lockers. The actors would discover them while filming the film. They would send an invoice and get payment for the hire after a while. Some of the receipts even matched the exact items that appeared in the show's major revelation segments. It wasn't a mess. It was prearranged. It was documented. This show demonstrated the awful lengths reality TV would go to in order to become popular. Even the well-liked Brandy Passante became embroiled in the controversy. Brandi and her partner, Jared Schultz, have a devoted fan base. She was renowned for her unexpected discoveries and sharp wit. Together, they had discovered some truly odd items. Antique teeth and antique toys in boxes. But it wasn't all a coincidence. The fact that more individuals were aware of what was happening demonstrated that Brandi and Jared were more than just spectators. On occasion, they had donated their personal belongings to plants and received payment in return. In production meetings, they were alleged to have supported the behavior. It became nearly hard to distinguish between genuine finds and phony riches, regardless of whether they brought their own or were handed items by producers. This implied that an item was likely placed there on purpose if its story sounded too good to be true or if it happened at the perfect moment. None of this occurred in a vacuum. There was a great deal of stress behind the scenes. Real storage sales are frequently boring. There is trash in many of the rooms. Our furniture is broken, our clothing are ancient, and we have jobs to do. It's bad television. To remedy it, it is reported that directors instructed the actors to portray exaggerated versions of themselves. A few were instructed to say specific things. Others were made to engage in combat while being filmed. In order to fabricate conflicts or dramatic reactions that never occurred, editors would occasionally combine recordings from various conversations. This kind of trick, known as a Frankenbite, makes it difficult to distinguish between genuine emotions and magic from television. It also paid rather well. At its height, the show's employees were earning between $15,000 and $25,000 per episode. Playing along with that type of money seemed like a smart move. Jared Schultz and Brandy Passante were together for over 2 decades. As the show's rising stars, they grew their fan base, managed a business, and reared their children. However, they quietly ended their relationship in 2018 after filming season 12. There was no visible formal paper trail because they never married. For nearly 2 years, no one outside of their group was aware of it. Although Brandy continued to post on social media, Jared's appearance in her photos was decreasing. Then another man began to appear. After much discussion, Brandy finally made the announcement in a relaxed Facebook Live interview in June 2020. Even then, they said very little. On set, they remained silent and continued shooting. They acted as if nothing had occurred. On reality TV, that kind of secret wouldn't last long. They managed to pull it off, though. After they finally learned, fans searched for clues in previous episodes. How come no one noticed? Everything changed in April 2021. After a 2-year hiatus, Storage Wars' 13th season was released. The split was incorporated into the show. Brandy was gone from Jared's life. They were rivals who openly bid against one another and swore at one another. He was a fool, Brandy told the camera. Jared was only bidding on the joke to enrage her. The stress was not only evident, but it also felt awful. Filming those moments wasn't easy, but Brandy did it for the show, she later remarked. In addition to demonstrating their breakup, that season blew everything up. Another shock struck as fans grew accustomed to this new circumstance. Jared was charged with misdemeanor domestic violence abuse after Brandy said he had shoved her at a club in May 2021. There was more to the acrimonious divorce than that. The rule made everything seem heavier, more profound, and much more genuine than anything else the show had ever depicted. After all of this, Bry's life underwent significant transformation. She was given sole custody of their 2 children, Cameron and Peyton. It wasn't an easy path either. Paige was born with a cleft lip and no hearing. Cameron got a scare of renal mass. Even before to their breakup, Brandy had been primarily responsible for parenting. Now she had to do it all. She joked that she no longer had the intimidating dad voice to support her and that she was the primary provider. But she didn't stop. She continued to show up, take care of her children, and go to work. On social media, she shared joyful moments with them, such as Cameron's 21st birthday celebration in May 2024. Those who knew her believed her to be genuine, strong, and steady. Jared operated a tavern in Lake Forest during this time and was mostly hidden from view. Bri became a single mother after getting married. Although it wasn't simple, it was the most significant period of her life. She was more than simply one of 2. She stood alone and was independent. Then she revealed something worse to him. For years, she claimed, she had no name. Everything had revolved around the show, the friendship, and her involvement. Jared and Brandy were there. Not only Brandy. After the divorce, that was different. She started to realize her true identity. It was time to start fresh, she remarked. After her breakup with Jared Schultz, Brandy Passante didn't simply go on with her life. She made a very public change of heart. She partnered with Women's Own Worth, a program that supports victims of domestic violence, in 2019. Every year at Wapalua, Brandy did more than just attend. She raised $100,000 in a single night as the master of ceremonies. She wasn't trying to attract attention. Brandy's work was more personal because she had experienced issues at home herself. The altercation at the bar followed. In April 2021, Brandy was in a pub in Orange County. Jared arrived. Witnesses reported that Brandy instructed him to go. No, he responded. Tension grew. He allegedly yelled at her and her pals and struck her twice. Jared had already departed when the cops were called. Later on, he claimed not to have touched her. The district attorney continued to charge him with misdemeanor domestic violence battery. They startled fans who had seen them fall in love on television. The breakup initially appeared depressing, but it suddenly seemed like something much more sinister was happening behind the scenes. Any illusions that their split had been amicable or simple were dispelled by the incident. Her intimate life was also made public in 2023. She then introduced him to Clifford Beaver, with whom she had recently become friends. In addition to selling houses, he owns and operates Our Place Bar and Grill in Lake Forest, California. Fans were taken aback by this news segment after nearly 2 decades with Jared. Additionally, Clifford and Brandi had a really pleasant conversation, particularly on Instagram. They posted family pictures, birthday greetings, and behind-the-scenes videos from Clifford's bar. In May 2024, Clifford posted a video of Brandi's birthday. Clips of them conversing, traveling, and mingling with their families were added. Together, these two appeared genuinely content. They both have children from past relationships. Some individuals took note. Fans of Brandi reported that she appeared happier and more at ease than in the uncomfortable scenario they had previously witnessed. Clifford and I went out in public for more reasons than love. Regaining her peace was the goal. The podcast news then arrived. In June 2025, Brandi declared that she and Brandy Passante would launch a reality program. This was no light conversation about celebrities. She promised to be really truthful and share the actual behind-the-scenes tales of reality TV. She promised to discuss behind-the-scenes activities that fans are unaware of. According to the commentator, "See, it's about to get real." And she was believed by others. After all, Brandi appeared in more than 260 Storage Wars episodes as well as a spin-off. In addition, she had to cope with the highs and lows of celebrity, grief, and parenting in the spotlight. The first episode of the podcast would be accessible on YouTube and all other major websites. Her direct writing style and courageous subjects made it one of the most anticipated releases in its sector very soon. Although fans assumed they knew what to anticipate, Brandi revealed yet another surprise. In February 2025, she posted images from inside a recording studio. There wasn't much to the title. She returned, "Be careful." That post generated a lot of conversation. How was this related to the podcast? Or was she working on a different project, such as a new program, music, or voice acting? It was made even more thrilling by the mystery. These days, well-known plans frequently leak before they are formally announced, but Brandi kept everything secret. In an attempt to understand what it all meant, fans extensively examined the studio equipment and lights. One thing was certain, though, nobody was certain. Brandi was creating a new identity. Simply a creative force creating something entirely new, rather than simply the queen of storage auctions. With her money, she is more than secure. In 2025, her estimated net worth will be $2 million. She reportedly earned $15,000 per show on Storage Wars, which accounts for a significant portion of that. That amounts to nearly $4 million in gross earnings from over 260 shows. Not to mention the money she earns from Jared and Brandi. Married to the job, her secondhand store, and numerous product lines. To start with, she and Jared had little. They were the youngest buyers on the show and had the least amount of money. But Brandi was clever. She transformed into something greater whenever she had the chance. At the height of their prosperity, they even launched a second thrift store. In the end, those stores shuttered, but Brandi continued. She branched out into media, goods, and fresh business concepts throughout time. Her experience demonstrates that reality TV stardom need not end abruptly. If you think about it correctly, it can develop into a permanent power.